Made in the image of God. Now, I'm sure you've heard this term before, but let's dig in and find out what it actually means. In Genesis 1:26, then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." Now, this might shock you, but this term, made in the image, was not necessarily unique to the Bible in the ancient Near East. Scholar John Kilmer, in his book Dignity and Destiny, Humanity in the Image of God, says, "The image of God would not have been a strange concept to readers and hearers of the Old Testament. As explained in previous chapter, in various parts of the ancient Near East, people considered kings, priests, and monuments, among other things, to be images of gods or kings. The biblical writings adopt the general concept but adapt it in various ways to fit the biblical message. For example, in the Bible, not merely the king is involved in God's image, but even the lowliest of people are involved as well. You see, humanity has this ability to perceive the transcendental. What is that exactly? Well, there's these aspects of reality that transcend space-time, that are objective from us, that we kind of recognize, such as beauty. Aristotle once said, "Beauty is the gift of God." There is no reason why our visual cortexes should match and recognize the beauty of the Milky Way when we see it. How does one describe beauty without using the word? Beauty is objective and universal in nature, hence our ability to recognize it. This is what makes us unique and special. This uniqueness of humanity is explained in the theological concept of the Imago Dei, which really derives a wonderful, meaningful and purpose for all our lives. But ultimately, how does it apply in the real world? Sometimes we can get lost in certain theological concepts. So for the sake of this video, I'll just speak on my own personal experience with my own business and how the Imago Dei relates to it. I have a hospitality business with about 15 staff, and there are certain regulatory bodies, like in other Western nations, that protect workers' rights. And in Australia, there's the Fair Work Commission and Workplace Health and Safety. Now, one philosophical question is, what is the importance or need to have these regulatory bodies in place protecting workers? Well, a simple answer would be that humanity does a lot of evil and terrible things to one another, as evidence in history, and also that we see in day-to-day living. Now, this video is not going to be about the problem of evil and its theological implications. But one thing that we can agree on is that evil does exist. Bad things do happen, and it happens at an individual level and as well as at a societal collective level. These regulations and governmental authorities and bodies is really a secular attempt to try and regulate how people treat one another. I mean, it's the essence of our modern day legal system. The Imago Dei doctrine from the Bible plays a really important role in how we actually internally rationalize our meaning and purpose and how we view one another. And a beautiful biblical story that supports this view is the adulterous woman in John 8. Now, we do have a lot of skeptics that watch the channel, and I do want to preface that my comments on the pericopa adulterae, or the adulterous woman story in John 8, is a hotly contested issue among scholars concerning authorship as to whether or not it was in the original autographs. Now, it is one of two major textual variants in the Bible, including the ending of Mark. Notwithstanding this, a story of Jesus, possibly from the 1st or 2nd centuries, with the earliest record being of Papias of Hierapolis, a 2nd century bishop, whereby Eusebius comments that Papias knew of a story concerning a woman accused of sins who was brought before the Lord, essentially substantiating that there is historical evidence that this story goes all the way back to the 1st century. Now, I'll go on the assumption that I assume you know the story already. Now, Jesus' teaching is that even though we can keep the law and not physically cheat on our partners, we commit adultery of the heart when we lust over other people. The moral essence of the story is that the motivation behind not wanting to cheat on your partner shouldn't come from you trying to keep the law. The motivation should be because you love your partner. It is a huge distinction between the two thoughts. When we boil it down, God doesn't want us to keep the law because we think it's the right thing to do. Our motivation should be our love of God and seeking relationship with Him and wanting to keep the law because of our relationship with Him and our love for Him. The Imago Dei should enlighten someone to see the value of what it is to be an image bearer of God, which essentially is the apex of creation itself. Life in the known universe is the rarest thing we know, and it is truly a miracle that we are here even from a secular standpoint. Whether we believe in God or not, we have unity in being image bearers of God, worthy of dignity, love, and respect. It might be somewhat idealistic, but if we truly believe this in our hearts, we wouldn't need to have these regulatory bodies protecting workers' rights because of our love and respect for one another. In our business culture, we don't make it a prerequisite to believe in God, but we do enact Christian principles of grace, love, humility, and respect, with the governing ethic is that all people are made in the image of God, and that it is nearly impossible to teach the internal significance of that point from a secular standpoint. You see, government tries to regulate that with the presupposition of a utilitarian understanding of good, which is likened to forcing people to respect one another without loving one another, which really breeds an environment of virtue signaling and insincerity and somewhat disingenuous behavior towards one another. You see, this is what speaks into another useful aspect of the Imago Dei, which is the relational identity and the emphasis of mutual love and respect for one another. Love and respect is analogous to running water. Water flowing into a stream must flow out, and when it does not flow out, an impurity takes over the stream. In order to know the essence of love is to be loving to one another. One cannot simply receive love and not give love. You see, the actual Godhead, the Trinitarian understanding of God, speaks into this, that the three persons and one being of God shared a pre-existent love for one another, that they actually know what love is because they gave love and received love amongst each other. And the essence of that was an overflow and wanting to create humanity. That is the importance that has been placed on our life and the meaning. The culture we have tried to build up at work is to understand the value of a human being through the Imago Dei. And when we put ourselves in a situation to truly embrace it through faith, it is very easy to give love, respect, and grace to one another. Jesus' teachings, whether in the workplace or out the workplace, taught everyone to first look internally and seek the change of your own heart before we go off and change the world.